Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ducky reporting from Cycle 245 in my Vanilla Iron Man campaign. Now, some of you have been asking for a while now for a colony guide, and as you can see, I have a lot of colonies here of various profitability, levels of development, and type, and so on. So, let's talk colonies briefly, just so that there is some info about this on the channel, to hopefully help you guys get started. In this video, we are going to cover three primary questions. Why should you make a colony? When should you make a colony? And how to start a colony. So first up, why make a colony? Well, for me, the most important thing usually is actually resupply. Past a certain number of ships in your fleet, past a certain size, an amount of supply consumption, if you will, it gets kind of hard to resupply your fleet by purchasing supplies from the core worlds. So like here, I'm burning 15 supplies a day for this fleet and untold amounts of fuel. And so having a colony that just has these massive stockpiles of resources in it just makes it easier to get ready to go back out and continue my adventures, right? And of course, if I see a shortage and I wanted to make cash, obviously at this point with 40 million credits, that's not a problem. But earlier on in the game, you know, if my colony is making luxury goods or other less legal goods and I spot a shortage, I could take these goods out and profit by them. Whenever you pull goods from this resource stockpile, right? Like if I were to take these supplies, these 10,000 supplies, you see it charges me end of the month million credits, right? So this is not free. You pay for these still, but you pay a flat rate that isn't adjusted by supply and demand. And of course, at this stage, there's a lot of every resource I might need here. So resupply is important, and you don't need a very well-developed colony. Obviously, this one is size 6 with a lot of AI cores, but all you need to be able to resupply your fleet is actually just a way station. That's all you need to generate supplies, fuel, and crew. Everything else you can figure out later. But even on a size 3 colony, way station will get you supplies and fuel. Another important reason to have a colony is storage. As you can see, I have a lot of stuff in storage. I've been on this save for a while, and having all of this centrally located is nice. I probably have more of various things than I'm ever going to need. Like I'm probably never going to use the corrupted nanoforges and stuff, but having all the guns, having spare crew and marines and stuff is really handy. And having it all in one place, a place that I control, that I don't have to sneak into or worry about, you know, transponder on or off or any of that. So having your own personal storage can be important. Of course, there are places in the game that you can use as storage. There are abandoned starports and such. One of them is in the Corvus system. So if you go right down here to Corvus, this abandoned terraforming platform near Asharu is where I would normally store my stuff early game before I have a colony. Downside of that, of course, is it's in hegemony space. If you are hostile to the hegemony, that could end poorly for you going to your storage. And of course, there's the problem of resupply. Asharu, Jangala, and Garnier combined don't have enough supplies and fuel for me to run my current fleet, even if I were wiping their markets clean every time I came through. So I just needed to have a colony eventually for the resupply, plus the storage. It's just very convenient. Also, you can store ships here. You can store an infinite number of ships, as many as your little scroll wheel finger can handle, really. That's kind of the limiter for me. Two more reasons that you should maybe make a colony. Income. As you can see, this planet that we're on right now makes about 160k income a month, and it's not even done being upgraded. There are a lot of alpha core slots that I have not yet filled. And overall, I am making a sizable amount of income. 600k a month in vanilla without being part of a faction or anything. More than enough money to do basically whatever I want at this point over time. So income, passive income is a factor. Especially on Iron Man, passive income is especially handy for rebuilding your fleet. If you inevitably lose your fleet, as I am sometimes wont to do by overextending and being overconfident. Lastly, the other reason to build a colony is right here, the custom production menu. The only way, other than certain contact-related missions, to build your own ships is through having a heavy industry. Now, when you have a heavy industry, it can be on any planet, right? Like I have Pumpkin Forge here, which has an orbital works, which is the upgraded version of heavy industry. And that orbital works can deliver ships to any planet that I would like. And there's this production gathering point here in the upper left. I can set this to whatever planet I want, which are scattered throughout the galaxy, universe, as it were, the sector. And I can then produce ships from the blueprints I have, and they'll be delivered to the storage of that planet. This is very handy. If I need another capital ship and I'm near one of my worlds, I can just, queue up 3 of them, let them build and be sent over. Although I'm more of a fan of just building everything in the one planet that is also my primary storage and working from that, but that's personal preference. But being able to make your own ships, just printing, 5 legions over the course of 3 months, that's really handy because you now don't have to deal with the factions. You don't have to buy ships, you don't have to go check markets or deal with contacts or look for bar missions that grant ships. And there's no looting of ships in combat unless you want to. You can, as long as you have the blueprint, you can make basically any ship in the game. Although even now, there are a handful of blueprints I'm missing. There are missions in the game that will get you every blueprint eventually. I'm just not there yet. So in brief, that covers why to make a colony. You may want storage. You may want passive income. You might want to manufacture your own ships. Oh, and on the note of manufacturing your own ships, it's not just ships. There's a tab for weapons. You can make most of the game's weapons. And there's a tab for fighters. So this is not just ship hulls. This is the whole package. So, storage, income, shipbuilding, and of course resupply, which is probably the most important one for me at this stage. It's just supplies and fuel. On to our next topic. When should you make a colony? So, you can make a colony basically at any point in the game, as long as you have 1,000 crew, about 200 heavy machinery, and about 200 supplies. And when you go to make a colony, all of that disappears and becomes the colony, as it were. You'll get to name your planet, build some industries, that kind of thing. And you can do that at any point. However, I have some baseline suggestions that you should have as prerequisites before making your colony, just so that you don't immediately lose it to pirates or other issues, or run out of money. So, step 1, I recommend having a fleet with at least 4 cruisers that are combat capable and a handful of frigates. You're going to want to be able to fight off the occasional pirate raid, as that is the first likely colony crisis event that you will encounter. Second, I recommend having 1 to 3 million credits in startup funds. You're going to throw these into the planet to immediately build some initial buildings and stuff. You're probably going to want a way station and some kind of industry and probably an orbital station so that you can defend the planet more easily from the incursions of the various other factions that may want a slice of your resources. And lastly, before you make a colony, you should have a plan for it. Is this a colony that's going to primarily generate income? If so, have you chosen a world that has the right things to generate income? Is this purely a colony that is well positioned on the galactic map? Is this a spot you're going to come through regularly just as a resupply point? That kind of thing. Every colony I've made in this run has one purpose or another in mind. And since this is vanilla, you can know that the core worlds, the regular factions, have not expanded. So when you look at my map here, every place that has a name, like so, has one of my colonies. And you can see I've kind of spread them out in a circle around the core worlds. This is because most of my planets are focused on resupply and then income. After I built a few heavy industries, I basically used the same template for all of my colonies. If you're playing with mods, what you can do with colonies will of course change and expand depending on the mods. That's a whole other subject that we may talk about someday. It wouldn't be much of a colony guide if we didn't go and start a colony. Let's go in here and grab supplies and fuel and go make another colony. I do have a system in mind to make a colony, which is this nebula down here. And I have it in mind because it's close to the abyss. So it would make a great jumping off point to get out here into the edge of the map and go into that content, which I won't spoil for you in this video. So let's get down there. And as you can see, there's something going on strange here. I have a wormhole going on. That is an item you can find that makes something of a portal, which is the other reason I want to have a colony down there, is I can go from my primary planet here through the wormhole and just be, you see we've moved all the way down to this nebula. So this is not an ideal place to make like an income generating planet, but what planets do we have available? We know, because I've chosen my location here for specific reasons, so what is our best possible planet? You can see each of these planets has a hazard rating, 325, 250, 275, and 250. All of those are abysmal, and I wouldn't recommend colonizing such a planet if you were in the early game. Functionally, the hazard rating of a planet, if we go over to one of my already established planets, you highlight hazard rating, it'll tell you what it does. So, the hazard rating results in an upkeep multiplier basically equal to its percentage. So, if, in this case, the hazard rating on this planet is 150%, so our upkeep goes up by a multiplier of 1.5, which is just a 50% increase to the upkeep of all of these buildings. Also reduces population growth rate That won't really matter in the long run, but it will matter if it's your first planet and you want to go fast. If you can find a planet with a hazard rating under 100%, take it. They're really good, and if you want to speed into having colonies and having the benefits of colonies, that's a great choice. If you want a bit of a slower burn and a challenge, take something with a hazard rating over a few 100%. If you can find a 200% planet, volcanic or cryovolcanic worlds grow very slowly and can make for an interesting challenge as a first planet, but I wouldn't recommend that unless you want the challenge. Circling back to this star system, if I were just picking based on hazard rating, these two planets would be the ideal ones at 250% hazard. If we look at resources, that one has -1 volatiles, which is no good. This one has no bonuses or penalties to volatiles. This one has sparse ore deposits, which is not great. And then this one has sparse rare ore deposits and moderate ore deposits. So if I had to guess just by looking, I would say probably this planet here, Aegeal, with the 250% hazard and the ore deposits, is my best bet. If I needed volatiles for something, like I didn't already have a planet producing them, I would take instead the gas giant. But for just a cheap startup colony that's going to make a little bit of income and serve as a way station kind of stop, we'll take the barren world. You just fly you just click on the planet with your fleet, and it'll prompt you, if you've already done your survey, there's only one option: establish a colony. There will be some warnings here about hostilities with other factions affecting accessibility and that kind of thing. And it'll tell you what it requires. I lied earlier. It's not 200 heavy machinery, it's 100, and 200 supplies and 1,000 crew. So we are going to establish this colony, and I'm just going to call it Waypoint because I am very creative with names. So when you start a colony, you're going to have a screen like this. Your hazard rating, your credits per month, who your administrator is, all of that. And very briefly on administrators, it's fine to let your character be the administrator. Later on, you may wish to hire an administrator that has the industrial planning skill if you don't have it yourself. But I wouldn't recommend doing that until the planet is producing income that is higher than the administrator's monthly salary of 20k. So hiring an admin like this is more of a late game thing, and you can only have 3 of them. There are hard limits to a degree on how many colonies you can have. But since I have an administrator to spare and I'm filthy rich, I will assign this administrator to Waypoint. And you may notice on my colony menu, there are these alpha cores as administrators. They are very good at their jobs. However, if you install an alpha core and you have not yet completed all your colony crises, the hegemony will come for you with extreme force. Colony crises and how to fight or resolve all of them will have to be the subject of another video because it will require me starting a new save file where I've not cleared those crises yet, and I'll have to go through them stage by stage and do recordings. That'll have to be a whole other production. If you want to see that though, let me know in the comments and I will put it on my to-do list. Anyway, with our example colony here, we've got our administrator. We know that it's going to be a slow burn, it's not going to make a lot of money, and our spaceport is automatically building. You always want to have a spaceport. I honestly don't know what happens if we remove that. Don't remove it. Just leave it there, it's fine. Okay, there is one important button that I recommend enabling on every planet you have, which is use stockpiles during shortages. Click on that, it'll light up. And now, if your planet is having a shortage in the resource stockpiles, they should draw upon your storage. Of course, both of these things are empty right now, but that is, I believe, how it works. Here we can test. We'll put some supplies in there, and we are still under a supply shortage. Never mind. Put them in resource stockpiles. Now we're no longer under a supply store. So I've learned something new. It's not a vanilla game function for your colony to draw from personal storage to manage shortages, only from resource stockpiles. So with that in mind, I'm just going to drop off some additional of everything here, and this is going to help the colony get onto its feet faster. So we've resolved the supply shortage. There are other shortages. It's fine for there to be shortages. It just slows things down. It will never grind you to a halt. Although, as you can see, it does affect credits per month and growth rate, but you'll get there. So next up, you have your colony. What do you want to build? That is a good question. If your planet is going to be building ships, I recommend a heavy industry sooner rather than later so that you'll have access to it. As the planet grows in size, you'll be able to produce more and more budget of ships per month, and that's about how that goes. If you make a heavy industry, you're also probably going to want a corrupted or ideally a pristine nanoforge. So good luck finding those. I kind of know what this colony is going to be doing, so it's going to be doing mining. We build the mining, and now I'm also going to build ground defenses. So buildings occur one at a time in order. That order is not usually important, so I'm not going to worry about it here. But ground defenses is going to increase stability. You'll note we have a stability of 2 If that stability goes down to 0, your planet can become decivilized, and it will no longer be a civilized world, and that would be really bad. Basically, you lose your colony. So I like to build ground defenses, even though in the vanilla game, you normally don't get a planet invaded, except during crisis events, which I've cleared on this save. So, ground defenses for stability, mining so that we begin generating income, and we have to wait for the spaceport to build. Let's hover over the planet and wait for the spaceport to build. Okay, there we go. Notification there, spaceport has been built. Now, why did we wait for the spaceport to build? Well, because most of the buildings have the spaceport as a dependency. So now we can build a few other things. And very quickly, industries occupy an industry slot, and you can only have a limited number of them. When we built the mining thing earlier, that occupies our industry slot. We will get another industry slot when this planet grows to the next size. The maximum size of a planet in vanilla is 6, and therefore the maximum number of industries you can have is 4 per planet. So one planet cannot necessarily supply all of its own needs. You'll need multiple if you want to make a fully independent empire, as I have here. But the spaceport is built, so we are going to grab a way station. As I've talked about, resupply is the main reason that I build bases all across the map, so way station is important. We're going to build an orbital station. All of them are good. I prefer the low-tech one because it's what I'm used to, so I always build low-tech. Now, the orbital station, in addition to helping us defend if this were ever attacked, provides stability bonus, which is going to help. And of course, as the colony has a spaceport now and can do trade, our faction is now shipping it various supplies, all of its shortages have been resolved, and stability is up now to 5. So, we have our way station, we have our orbital station. The only other thing I would build is probably a patrol HQ, which adds some defensive patrols to the system and to that orbit around the planet. Particularly useful if you're still dealing with colony crises, but even then, we may get like random pirates out here or something, and having patrols will help with that. So, that's how to get started. We're not going to worry about planetary shield. The bonus for that almost never comes up because it's just ground defense, and it is expensive to maintain. Basically, unless you're playing with mods, I would avoid the planetary shield. Ground defense is going to be enough. So, some buildings have the ability to be upgraded when you click on them. The orbital station, the patrol HQ, ground defenses all have that, but we can't do it until they're built, and that's going to be a long time from now. The spaceport, however, can be immediately upgraded to a megaport. This gives you more population growth and more accessibility. I've said the word accessibility a few times now. What is it, and what does it do? If you highlight access up here on the top, like upper left middle, it'll tell you. This colony has an accessibility of 17%. Market share of exports are multiplied by 0.17, which means that we are not very profitable. As our accessibility rises, our goods will be worth more and more because more of them functionally are making it into the economy of the entire sector. And of course, we have some bonuses and some penalties. Hostilities with other factions, that's just a personal problem that my run has because I haven't really cared to maintain relationships with most factions. You will probably have better relations than me. And then of course you get a bonus for having a spaceport and a bonus for a few other things that you'll get as rewards for finishing colony crises. But accessibility is a number you don't have to worry about too often because just as you build up and as your colony grows in size, accessibility will naturally go up. So no worries there. Another way to increase accessibility is to click the Freeport button right here. So, a free port has reduced stability, but increased accessibility, because it's basically like making your planet be willing to deal with pirates and other factions that have their transponders off. And in the tooltip it says, unlike normal markets, a free port gets income from smuggled exports. And you'll note when we clicked Freeport, a few things change. Immediately, our stability goes down by a point, accessibility goes up by 5, and that little red square over the recreational drugs goes away. Because now we are allowed to import those because we're not really checking people at the door, so to speak. I almost always turn Freeport on. The only time where I would turn it off is if I was concerned about stability hitting 0 due to other factors, like having recently been raided by pirates or sat-bombed by other vile factions and so on. So, the last button to cover here is the hazard pay button. If you click the hazard pay button, watch my credits per month there, boom, we are now being charged an exorbitant rate in hazard pay for all of the people that live on this planet. But our growth has gone from being negative to a positive number. So if I want to grow this planet, which I do, I'm going to have to run hazard pay. That's not a problem for me on this save, but if this were my first planet, 32,000 credits a month might be a little steep. Again, planets with high hazard are very hard to grow, especially in the early and mid-game. But with hazard pay and free port enabled, almost any planet can be made to grow in size. And once a planet has achieved a size, like this is size 3, the growth rate is negative because we turned off hazard pay. Even though the growth rate is negative, it will never drop to size 2. And that remains true if it were to go up to size 4 via hazard pay, and we were to turn off hazard pay, it would not drop back down to size 3. So once you have a colony up to size 6, hazard pay goes away, and it's no longer an option you can even enable, because it doesn't do anything. The only other real button here is the abandon button, if for some reason you want to get rid of your colony. So as you can see, you do get a bit of a refund. It'll generate some credits for a net payout, which is of course far less than what we spent trying to build those things, and all items in storage and used by industries will be lost. This action cannot be undone. Generally, I never click abandon. You would only abandon your colony if you had colonized way too early, and if you follow my earlier advice, you'll probably be fine. Remember, have a fleet with at least 4 cruisers, have 1 to 3 million credits in the bank, and have a plan for your colony. This one is just going to be a pit stop for me to refuel. Honestly, I could just leave it like this, not add anything or change anything for a while, till the next industry slot unlocks, then I might add something. But colonies in the base game are pretty hands-off once they're set up. And I think that is about it for this. That is why to make a colony, when should you make a colony, and how to start one. Again, if you guys want to see me do the colony crises stuff, specifically as guides, I'll need to set up a new save game for that, and that would take some time. Let me know in the comments if that interests you, and I will add it to my to-do list. This has just been a quick thing because multiple people have been asking for it, and so I wanted to throw something together so that you guys would have at least a starting reference point to those basic questions of why, when, and how. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you for your time, everyone.